Most teams sourcing event production proposals get stuck on one question. Should we tell them our budget? If I tell them my budget, aren't I showing my cards and compromising the process? Well, the truth is, it depends entirely on how well you've defined your scope. If the scope is solid, you don't need to disclose a thing. If it's vague, hiding the budget actually makes the project riskier. Let's break this down. I'm Niko Solomos, and after 17 years producing experiential builds and activations, I can tell you this: how you handle the budget conversation is one of the biggest predictors of whether your project stays on track or turns into a painful and expensive mess. Today, I'm going to walk you through when you should disclose your budget, when you shouldn't, and how to avoid the most common pitfalls teams make when requesting proposals. This is production intelligence. If you have a thorough, detailed scope, you don't need to share your budget up front. A detailed scope answers almost every variable except price. You've defined the creative, the environment, the audience. You know exactly what's being built, what it's made of, how it functions, how people will interact with it. When you eliminate ambiguity, you naturally get competitive and accurate bids without revealing your budget. Say you're a lifestyle brand and you've committed to activating at a festival or a sporting event. And I've heard this a bunch of times. Like, someone will say, we want a cool pop-up retail environment with some kind of interactive gamification to attract people, collect market data, and drive engagement. So give us a quote. Well, that really doesn't tell me enough. A really solid partner is going to push back and bury you with a bunch of questions that will just leave you with more work than you started with. A not-so-savvy partner probably won't be able to identify that the scope is too vague, and they'll just start guessing and making assumptions, which is wildly dangerous. Or if you do get any bids, you'll end up with bids that are impossible to compare apples to apples. Instead, a real detailed scope looks more like this. What the footprint of the activation is, what the layout requirements are. If there's wall systems, is it dimensional lumber, scenic flats, rented modular frames, or fabricated steel? What level of finish? Is it plywood, painted surfaces, wrapped with vinyl graphics, or fully scenic textures? And if there's a game, like, what is the game? What data are we trying to collect? What hardware is required? Who is producing the software? That's a big one. Is it you? Is it us? Is it a third party? What's the expected throughput? How many people per hour should the interactive support? Is there going to be any content capture, prizes, or on-site fulfillment? See, that's a real scope. And once that's all spelled out, partners aren't guessing. They can engineer the structure, the tech, the user flow, and the budget accurately. And now you can compare bids purely on execution, creativity, and price without disclosing your budget. When the scope is this dialed in, your budget becomes unnecessary for accurate pricing. On the other hand, if you don't have that level of definition, if you're still exploring ideas, or if you don't have the technical expertise on fabrication or interactive, then sharing your budget is a smarter move. Now, partners can shape the creative with cost in mind. They can recommend alternatives, right-size the fabrication, and prevent overbuilding or underbuilding. When the scope is loose, transparency protects you. Here's the real red flag. If you don't have a detailed scope and you also don't have a clear budget, you're headed for frustration. At that point, you're asking partners to guess the goals, the experience, the engineering, and the cost. This ambiguity always leads to misalignment, delays, and overruns. The smartest move is to pause, define the scope, or establish a realistic budget range before you go to market. Or go to market for a creative agency to help you establish these. So here's the simple rule. If your scope is clear, keep your budget private. If your scope is loose, transparency protects you. And if you have neither, you're not really ready for proposals. That's how you de-risk your project before a single bid hits your inbox. If you found this helpful, subscribe and drop your questions into the comments below about scopes, budgets, or vendor selection. This is production intelligence.